All right, so today we're going to be working on solving one-step equations, and this is my favorite thing to teach, and it's my favorite math to do. This is algebra. So we're having a variable, which is a number we don't know the value of, and we're finding the value by doing literally the opposite of what it tells us to do. So we have 4 examples here that give us all 4 operations, and we're going to show you how to solve each one. So let's look at example 1. We have x plus 4 equals 3. Our goal is to get the variable x by itself. Remember, we don't like our x's. Then, to get x by itself, you must get rid of the 4 that is sitting there on the same side as the x. The 4 is being added to the x. So in order to get rid of the 4, you must do the inverse or the opposite of what is already being done. The inverse or the opposite of addition is subtraction. So that means we have to subtract. But remember, in math, we have to be fair. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Just like what we did to the top, we had to do to the bottom with ratio tables. So if we're going to subtract this 4, we're going to have to subtract it on the other side as well. What happens over here is positive 4 and negative 4, or positive 4 minus 4, cancels out. That goes to 0, but we don't need to write that. Just like we remember in those properties, anything plus 0 is just itself. So we don't have to continue that math. We just ignore it. We do the math on the other side of the equal sign, which is 3 minus 4. 3 minus 4 would give me a negative 1. So if it's telling you to add, your job is to subtract. We're trying to get the x all by itself. Let's look at example 2. Example 2 says w minus 6 equals 8. So our goal is to get our variable w by itself. To get it by itself, we have to get rid of the 6. So the 6 right now is being subtracted from w. So to get rid of the 6, you must do the inverse or the opposite of what is already being done. The inverse operation would be addition. So we write our equation, and now we're going to do the opposite of what it says. So we're going to add 6 where we need to get rid of it, and to the other side. So minus 6 and plus 6 cancel out to be 0. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. We just have to do the math on the other side. 8 plus 6 gives me 14. So w equals 14. Remember, it's always a good idea to go back and double check this work and make sure that it's correct. So what that means is you would take where the variable is and replace it with a number you got. So 14 minus 6, and make sure it equals 8. And if it does, then you are good to go and you know you got it right. So let's look at example number 3. Example number 3 is 4y equals 12. Our goal is to get the variable y by itself. To get y by itself, we must get rid of the 4. So the 4 is being multiplied by y because they're touching. Remember, if anything is touching, it means multiplication. To get rid of the 4, we must do the inverse or the opposite of what is already being done. So the inverse operation would be division. So we have 4y equals 12. We're going to put our little division signs underneath both of them. So remember, we make it look like a fraction because a fraction is division, just it's not finished. So we make it like a fraction to just keep everything nice and clean and easier to think through. It also helps you figure out which one goes inside when you're trying to divide, because your cowboy always goes inside. You don't put your horse in the house. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. The 4 and 4 cancel out, because if I did 4 divided by 4, it would just give me a 1, and every variable has an invisible 1 in front of it. So then, now I have 12 divided by 4. So 12 divided by 4 would be 3. Again, you could double check this really quickly and easily. 4 times 3 is 12. So I make sure I got it right. Let's look at our last example, which is example 4. It is negative z divided by 7. So when you see division in solving equations, it usually looks like a fraction. They're not going to say z and the division sign. They're going to make it a fraction. So if you see this, know that it means division. So negative z over 7 equals 3. So the negative goes with the number. So our goal is to get the variable z by itself. So the negative also has to go. So we must get rid of the negative 7. We have to get rid of both. We just take that negative and put it with a number because it doesn't make sense to be with a letter. The operation between z and negative 7 is currently division. That's why it looks like a fraction. And in order to get rid of that, we have to do the inverse or the opposite of what is already being done. The inverse operation would be multiplication. So usually when we're going through and solving this, we put it next to it. So then we know that that means, because it's like touching, so we know that that means to multiply it. You can always put your dot and not do the parentheses, whichever you prefer. So we're going to multiply both sides by negative 7. So negative 7 over here, negative 7 on the other side, because what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So the negative 7s actually cancel because negative 7 divided by negative 7 multiplied by negative 7. It's a whole thing about fractions, but I'm not going to explain it to you. Just know that it cancels because that's our goal. Then we're going to do the other side. 7 times 3 is 21, and negative times a positive means it's a negative 21. Again, you could go through and make sure that this is correct, and here's how to do this. So you have z equals negative 21, so negative 21 on top, negative 7 on the bottom. A negative and a negative cancel out the negatives, and 21 divided by 7 would give me 3. So I know that I did my math right the first time when I was solving the equation. Solving equations is so much fun to me. All you do is literally the opposite of what they told you to do. Our goal is always to get our variable or our x by themselves because we want them lonely and miserable. Keep that in mind.